In this video, we are going to talk about two very important aspects of test data that CITS offers us. The first one is user-defined variable. So oftentimes, it's required that I do not pass the data from my data sheet, but I pass the data from an external command line, for example. So if I click on login, the URL or the username and the password are classical examples of this. What I mean by this is sometimes your username and password are changing. So you may have a secured password vault from where you would want these usernames and passwords to be fetched every time you start your testing, or the URL is also something that has to be passed from command line. In order to create a user-defined data, we just simply need to click on the settings icon, and from the settings icon we just need to travel to the user defined section and create your user defined property. So it's a key value pair, it's a properties file with a key value pair. So the name of the property will be the name of the variable. So in this case I would say URL. I can also say username and password. And if I copy the value from here, or you know what, maybe it's good to have only one for now, so the URL and username are not required. Maybe just the password. So I don't want the password hard coded. Well, it's still not hard coded, it's encrypted, but still, let's assume we want an extra layer of security and we don't want the password to come from here. So what we will do is we're going to remove the password from the data sheet and we are going to put it in the user defined, or we may not put it in the user defined and we just leave it blank, so that when we run it via command line, it comes from an external source and it gets automatically fed into this property, and we can use this property in the test case in this way. So I'm going to close this. Line number 3 in the login reusable, line number 3 where we have password set encrypted, we do not take it from our data sheet anymore. We remove it and we simply need to press percentage and it immediately starts showing up. This is the name of the variable that we have created in the user defined section, password, and that's it. This is how we have mapped the data from the user defined section onto this test step. The second important feature about test data that we can use is the concept of creating certain random data or some concatenation of strings or date functionalities that come with the tool built in. So, as an example, we see that we are always entering some dummy data in the first name, last name, and zip code. So we can always ensure that we can generate a random number or a random name like this. So a name followed by uh, a few random characters for all the test cases. So the next time it runs, it may try to add something like this. So every time there is a new test case that is running, it is always going to generate unique random names, which is very handy for a test case. Now, in order to understand how this thing will work, what we will do is we will quickly create a test case. Um, Let me name it. We'll create a test scenario, and we are going to say test functions, and we're going to create a test case. Data generation. Okay, so this is where we are going to learn how we can generate different kinds of data on the fly at runtime. Okay, so let's start creating the test case. So I'm going to say browser, and the action is add var. That means I'm just adding a variable. In the condition column, we are going to put the condition, we're going to put the variable name. The format is percentage variable name. I'm going to use var1 percentage. Now in the input column, if we press equal to, we have the option of these built-in methods. So date, this is pow, which is equivalent to the math.pow, random, max, round, min, and concat. The most commonly used ones are the dates, the randoms, the rounds, and the concats. At least that's what I have experienced in my test automation experience, and I'm going to explain all of these. So I'm going to first use the date function. Now, what this will do is this will be able to create a date for you in a desired format. Now, this date you can specify as today's date, which is today, D. You can also have a D plus 5, so 5 days in advance, a D plus 10, 10 days in the future. Or you can also have something like a D minus 20 or D minus 30 or days in the past, and in a format of your choice. So what would be the syntax? So date, then a bracket, and now here you're going to pass the delta. If you put 0, it's going to consider it as today, and then the format that you want. So I'm going to say dd slash mm slash yyyy. So that's one. So at the end of this execution, if I execute this, at the end of this line, var1 will have this value. Now, what I can do is I can just simply print this variable for us to know what would be the value. Okay, so let's try all three combinations. Yeah, so let me copy these two lines 2 times. So I'm going to name it as var2, and var2 would be having let's say a date in the future. So I'm going to say equal to date now in the future. So that means +3 maybe, and I'm going to say now the format would be a little different. So I'm going to say dd hyphen mm hyphen yyyy. Sorry. And I'm going to store it in var2, and I'm going to print var2. And the third case would be var3, and I'm going to print var3. In this case, I'm going to print a date which would be in the past. So date, this would be minus 20 days, and the format could be, in this case, yyyy hyphen mm hyphen dd. That's it. This is how we can generate a date. So at the end of these steps, we would always have the date in the form of a string always stored in this variable. So I'm going to run this very quickly. I'm going to select no browser because this does not involve any browser action. So if I just run this, I get a report very quickly. I expand the report and I see 28th of December, which is today's date, 31st of December, which is the New Year Eve, 3 days in the future, 3 days in the future, and then I have 8th of December in this format YYMMDD, 8th of December, which is 20 days in the past YYMMDD. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to comment out these lines. I'm just going to select, right click, toggle comments. I'm going to comment out these lines. I don't want the date actions anymore. I'm going to show you how to use the other functions. So let's quickly add 2 lines. So browser, add var. Now I'm going to use the random function. A random function is fairly simple. You just use random and then you enter the number of digits that you want. So a 6-digit number or 6-digit or 7 digits, whatever is okay. And I'm going to store it in var4. And I'm just going to print var4. This random function will not just generate a number with 6 digits, but will also generate 10 places of decimals after this. So if I run this and open the report, we see that we do have a 6-digit number, but also 10 places of decimals after this. This ensures that it's almost always unique and can be used for different kinds of data generation. If we don't want the decimal part of this, we have to use the round function along with random. I'll show you that as well. So if I say browser add var equal to round of random 6. So basically I'm rounding off the number that has been generated by random, storing it in a variable var5, and if I print this, sorry, var5. So now let's see the difference between 7 and 9. So expand this. So here we see a 6-digit number followed by 10 places of decimals, and here we only see the 6-digit number and the decimal is rounded off. So this is also sometimes pretty important, pretty useful. Finally, we are going to see how we can concatenate uh, 2 strings or 3 strings or multiple strings together, right? So I'm going to comment out 7 and 8. I don't need these two anymore. What I will do is I will add one more line or 2 lines. Browser add var equals So date we have covered, random we have covered, round we have covered. Now concat, concatenation of multiple strings. So usually it would be a string like a name. So my name, comma, and then the variable. So in this case, var5 is already the variable that will generate a random 5 digit, sorry, 6 digit number. I already know that, and I'm going to just concat that variable with my name, and I can store this in another variable called var6, and I'm going to print var6. If I run this together and open this, so we see var5, the value generated was 310169, a 6 digit number, sorry. And then we concatenated that with the string Ashish, and now we were able to generate a random name um, with a string followed by this random number. This is exactly the concept that we are going to use in our test case. So I'm just going to copy 9, 10, 11, and 12. We don't need 12. We're not printing anything. So 9, 10, and 11. We're going to copy this, and we are going to bring it to our reusable, where we were filling up the first name, last name, and zip code. And this is what we are going to do. We are going to paste these 3 lines. We don't need to print anything, so I'm going to remove it. So these 2 lines, we are going to take it right at the top. Okay, so we have a variable. We are going to concatenate it with the first name, and we are going to give it a logical name. No, var5 is fine. We're going to change the name later, but here we're going to give it a logical name like first name. And in the first name field, we are going to feed this variable. Okay. Similarly, we are going to copy this line, and we are going to generate a random last name. So I'm going to remove this, and we are going to rename it, or give it a logical name like last name. And in this case, Ashish should be replaced by a logical name, last name actually. So that's my surname, and we add this here. And we can leave the zip code as is, or we can also have something like uh, directly var5, which is a random 6 digit number generated as the zip code. And we can, so I've just copied it, and we can paste it here. This also will work. Oh, sorry, I didn't replace the last name here. So now you see the last name is getting filled in by the variable. This variable is a concatenation of a string followed by a random number. The first name is also filled in by a string followed by a random number, and the zip code is always a random number. So we have also seen now how we can generate random data, different kinds of data on the fly.